I call the program and I'm like, yo, I know the application is done, but I don't see when the next one opens. I'm calling for information. The person who is the president of the organization that runs the fellowship itself is like, you say your name was Davon Harris? I was like, yeah. They say, yo, where did you go to high school at? I said, I went to high school, DeWitt Clinton. The person is like, yo, this is my name. I was a dean at DeWitt Clinton during the time you were there.
Wow.
And I remember you.
Welcome to Career Cheat Code. In this podcast, you'll hear how everyday people impact the world through their careers. Learn about their journey, career hacks, and obstacles along the way. Whether you're already having the impact you want or are searching for it, this is the podcast for you. On today's episode, we have someone who does advocacy work for a charter school network. Let's start the week with Davon Harris. All right. So Davon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Finally.
Sure. Appreciate it. Now, it's been a long time coming. You know, you and I have connected about this for a while, so I appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Let's dive right in. Let's tell the world what it is you do for a living.
I introduce myself to everybody who's here with us. My name is Davon Harris, lifelong Bronxite. Right now, I work for an organization called KIPP NYC. So KIPP is a national organization, charter school, and I work for the New York City region, right? So the regions work autonomously, but I do like some national work and go out and do other things like that. So I am the advocate manager, right? The advocacy manager. And what that entails is like I work with the stakeholders who do things inside and outside the schools, who build our communities together. So that's a lot of work with elected officials, a lot of work with different community board leaders, different people who are like into real estate and stuff like that. It's multi-leveled, right? We can get into it. I know there's a couple other questions you're going to ask to like break it down. But for the most part, right, I'm working for a school network in New York City. We have 18 schools throughout the boroughs, and I'm advocating for those specific schools and the charter network as a whole and the charter sector as a whole in the state of New York. I do a lot of work in Albany and things like that.
So let's break it down a little bit. You walk in on Monday. What does your week look like?
All right, so depending on the time of the year or what's going on, right, is different. So this is my first time working inside like an educational entity. I've always worked in like either nonprofit and politics where I worked alongside education, right? But now it's like, all right, my work schedule is on the school schedule, right? So like right now, I still go to work because I work in a regional office. But a lot of people that I was an undergrad with work with me at KIPP, and they're off because they're school-based staff, right? They're doing their directive operations. They're like social workers, they're teachers, so they're all for the summer. But it's because I work for the region and that work doesn't stop. I still go into work. So I'll give you a typical week that could be like multifaceted, right? Like one of my first weeks, I've only been with KIPP for 5 months now, since February. One of my first weeks, the first day I started, I hosted a trip to Albany, like an advocacy day, right? So that's connected with parents, getting the bus 6 a.m., telling them what we're going to go meet with elected officials. So we're with our coalitions, right? So we're on a bus with different charter school entities like Boys Prep, Girls Prep, different charter schools throughout the Bronx. The first day was a Bronx advocacy day. So we go up 6 a.m., we take our 2-hour trip to Albany, and now we just have a list of electeds that we're going to go meet with at their office. We're going to go to their office in their chambers. We're going to have a rally on the $1 million staircase there, bring all the electeds out who are charter champions to speak to our causes, right? So that's a Monday, right? So preparing the parents for that, getting them up there, getting that. So like, that's like, all right, it's definitely being able to have the relationship with elected officials to get those meetings, right? Then it's like on the back end, I'm now doing things like, all right, now I have to like coordinate the logistics of like, where the bus is going to come, where the bus is going to stop. How many parents do we have there? The parent communication. Now we got to get those lunches out, right? So that's like, those are like the everyday things that we have to do before and during the trip. And then now we're at the trip here and managing those talks with the electeds, right? Having the parents be able to voice their concerns for their students, their communities, and their schools, but also be respectful to the elected official who's given us their time. I'm happy to bridge that gap, right? Because I come from working with electeds, right? And fielding these meetings with different entities. So now I'm on the other side of the table to be able to be like, hey, I'm here with these parents. They have some concerns, but these are the people who are voting for you, right? So like take those concerns seriously. So that's like one day. Another day, I might just be coming in the office. Our office is in Times Square, right? Our regional office. I might be coming in there, and then now I'm just doing like planning, right? So now, so I've just had a big summer planning meeting, and we have things like our regional family council meetings. So I have 18 schools. That's 18 parent associations, right?
Mm,
So then we have one big parent association throughout the whole entity. So I manage those,
mm,
right? So like basically checking in with our advocacy point people with that we have embedded in the different schools, right? I have to manage those people who are working a regular job, right? Because at each school it might be different, right? At one school it might be the social worker that I'm working with, and another school might be the principal, right?
mm.
But all of these people have an extra job of doing this advocacy based work that I manage,
Got it. That makes
right?
sense.
So yeah, so like so there's a lot of paperwork to be done,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, so I could be at City Hall one day, right? So it's like, so since I'm working with something that has to do with politicians and electeds, right, and policy, right?
Mm,
It's like, yo, I meet with the coalitions, right? I meet with people who are running these charter schools, and it's like, hey, listen, right? Charter schools, we've been around for like 25, 30 years now in New York City. They're trying to roll back some of the things that parental choice offers in New York State. So that work requires a lot of like thought partnership with our colleagues who are also running charter schools and other networks around the city.
that makes
So
sense.
and I mean it's interesting to navigate, right? Because I used to just be on the outside, right, and just get the information, but now like I'm in a part of it. So right, like Raddy, you know this well, right? Because I know where you come from in work and stuff like that. So I was talking with one of my colleagues, and it was like I feel like I went from being a generalist, right, working for an elected, having to know so many things about so many things, right, to
Mm-hmm.
now being a specialist, right? So like now I'm like, hey, listen, I work in education and in specifically charter education, right? And this is exactly what I need.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
so those two different things,
Mm.
those two different pathways. I'm happy to have had this experience, this new experience that I'm getting through KIPP.
Okay, so you've been there about a few months. Is this what you
Yeah.
always wanted to do?
So ironically, this is not what I always wanted to do. I never really grew up with something like, oh, I want to be this, right? When I was a kid, I was like, yo, I want to be a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
right? I went to college. I know one of your questions is probably going to be about like how did I get to where I'm at, right? So I went
Yeah,
to
yeah.
college, right? I went to DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx, right? It was overcrowded when I went there. I went from the years of 2003 to 2007. My graduating class had like 1,300 seniors in it. All right,
Wow.
so I was a part of they have the gifted and talented in the schools and in the specialized schools. A lot of those things have changed and those designations have changed, but I was a part of a program called the Macy Einstein program, where like all like the smartest kids, they filter those kids in or what they would deem as that, right? The kids who are getting like high grades. So I
Mm.
was in that school. I was in that program within the school. And Macy Einstein was like two different classes. So that's like maybe 60 kids.
Mm.
And everybody in those classes was like 1 to 60, like when and the graduating 1,300,
Yeah.
right? And I'm
Wow.
like, I'm a kid that was like, all right, I'm good being. I think I was like 97,
Mm.
right? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't in the smart class, but I was doing a whole lot of things, and I was just happy to be top 100. But kids in my class was devastated if they was 15,
That makes
hey,
sense.
right?
That makes sense.
But that top 20 was like just like decimals on the who's where, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
those kids was like those are
Mm.
my friends that I connect with now, and I do work that I feel makes me happy, and they do work I guess that makes them. They might do it that makes them happy, but they get a lot of my friends who are those top students are like they're like biologists, the people
Mm-hmm.
they're those careers that you think are like, all right, these are what your parents want you to do.
Absolutely. That sounds right. That
Right.
sounds right. Okay.
So I wanted to be a doctor, but when I got to college, I was like, all right, like there was only a certain amount of careers that I could choose from when I was young. When I got
Mm-hmm.
to college, it was like, oh, you could do whatever you really like, right? And now I was
Mm-hmm.
here with the vision of that to be like, all right, like I could really do whatever I like. So I don't necessarily have to do this, right? Let
Mm-hmm.
me do something that makes me happy. So I came out of college working for a nonprofit and I worked for a while there. And I had the thought like, hey, I want to run a nonprofit. My career led me to go into politics and to be doing like political work. but now I'm working back at a nonprofit. I still do political work for the nonprofit, but I'm still on the path that I had coming out of
Oh, interesting.
undergrad, right? Like, and I think that I'm in a unique space. So like right now working at KIPP is very unique for me, right? A lot of things that I've particularly put myself in has led me to this point. I'm a person that I do a lot of different fellowships. You know, people like call it like fellowship junkies, right? I'm a connector, what I would say, right? Like I like to network. That's what I do. So like when I hear about new fellowships that are interesting to me and I get to meet new people, I'm all in. How I got to KIPP was, I don't know, have you interviewed Janet here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course.
So yeah, I went to undergrad with Janet.
She was the first interview here. She is back when she was working at the Department of Small Business Services. She has now gone on to become the deputy Bronx Borough president. And
we
it's
just
also
had a tour.
Family. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. I just had her on a tour. At KIPP, we got through. So like I said, like you'll hear about different parts of my day, right? Like I work with our real estate team. We got 3 projects going up in the Bronx right now. One that's in my neighborhood where I grew up on Kingsbridge. I just had Janet come, right? Deputy Bronx Borough President, and we're doing a tour of this. And how dynamic is that, right? Like
Absolutely.
Me and Janet family from undergrad doing work, developing the borough that we came from.
Absolutely.
Right. Like
Absolutely.
and so that's what gets me excited, right? Like this is work that I'm doing and I'm showing my friend who could help assist with that work, but right, who is also like the face of the borough. Right. So I'm like, yo, listen, this is what I'm doing to make the borough look good. So when you out there, you can say, hey, this is what's happening in the borough.
Absolutely.
Right. So
where'd you let's tell the world, where did you go to undergrad? Because that's where you met Jan and a bunch of other folks.
Yeah. So a bunch of people that you've had on your show.
Absolutely.
I went to Binghamton University. So after I graduated from DeWitt Clinton, I went to Binghamton University. I was an ELP student, right? Afforded the opportunity to go there. Quick story. I chose to go to Binghamton because I didn't really have anybody. My mom just wanted me to go to college, right? Like that was just her thing, right? Like, hey, go to college. My mom wasn't the one who was like really on me to be in my books and stuff like that. She would tell me, hey, I went to school 20 years ago. Davon, you need to go to school. She made sure I went to school, but that was the extent, right? Because she had so much other things going on with life. So when I chose to go to Bing because so many people that I went to high school with wanted to go to Bing but didn't get in.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So I got in, and one of my closest friends who actually got in, he had gotten waitlisted, right? So we ended up being like roommates the freshman year. Is my close friend to this day. His name is Miguel Mateo. He's like a VJ now, but like he did a lot of like social work and stuff like that. So he was like crying when he got waitlisted. That's how bad he wanted to go to Bing, right? Like that's how much he knew about it. And like when somebody had like a number 1 school, right? Like my number 1 school, I wanted to go to Columbia because it was an Ivy League and it was prestige and it was in New York. But ironically, the college counselor at my high school did not even send my application, the type of things that like students be having to go through in New York City, right? So I make my way to Bing because I was chosen, right? And people weren't. And when I got there, I meet a bunch of people who are doing dynamic things to this day, right? And I think that like when people tell you, yo, college are the best 4 years of your life, and people who say that, now that I'm a married father, right? Things have changed. But there was a long span of my life that, those 4 years were the top moments of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like
100%.
that was it coming. I was coming of age. I was doing things that I've never done before. Being at Bing, I had a beautiful time when I was there. Like the ELP community, the Black and Brown community was very welcoming, right? The town of Bing, I think like that also exposed me to different things coming from an urban setting, right? Going upstate and now being outside of that, being in a rural space where like in New York City, you deal with like racism, but like dealing with it on an everyday basis, like a super constant basis when you're not only around your people, when you're not just a statistical minority, but you're really a minority in the space, right? When you're like the only Black person in class and they're like, oh yeah, we're talking about hip hop, Davon, lend your than your
Yeah,
thoughts.
exactly. Like, yeah, speak on behalf of the culture. Like, what?
Like, what?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm happy to have those experiences, right? Like I
Of
went to
course.
Bing. After Bing, right? I graduated, I came home. I
What
worked with
was your major, by the way?
I actually graduated with a dual degree from Binghamton. I was in two. So Binghamton University has broken down into colleges, right? So I was in Harper College, which is our liberal arts
Mm-hmm.
college, and I got a Latin American Caribbean area studies major and an Africana studies major. I got double major under my bachelor's of art degree,
Got it.
and that's just because like I wanted to learn about us. Like I wanted to learn about like where my people came from. I didn't have no, but like I said, like I grew up in the Bronx, Briggs Avenue, 194. It was just me and my mother, and I didn't really have people teaching me about like historical facts. So when I got to
Mm-hmm.
college and it was something that I could do, and it was something that was like well respected, like a lot of the Black people who were cultivating my college like career and experience, they did those majors and they promoted those majors. So that's the path that I took. I loved the classes.
Mm.
And like at the point in time when I was in Bing, like this, I feel like I'm a person of like opportunity, right? Like I could have graduated with 4 majors, but I graduated with 3 majors and a minor in sociology just because I didn't want to take like 2, 3 extra classes.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a bachelor's of science in human development from our like College of like Professional Studies. It's called CCPA. I
Okay.
don't want to mess up on what the drinks
Yeah, yeah,
stand
got it.
for at the moment. A lot of these classes, because they were dealing with like disenfranchised people and like historical facts and things, they like overlapped. So I was in school at a point where you could take one class and it could hit 4 majors.
Mm.
So like
Yeah, that
I
makes
didn't
sense.
know
I did
after
this.
a while,
I
like
did a similar thing, so I get it.
yeah, yeah. But I think you had to be a person that was like really like keen to that,
Absolutely.
right? Like it wasn't like you. I know some people that were just going through the motions in school and just going and taking the classes, or they
Mm.
might just stick to their major. But like once I knew that I could do this, that was my plan,
That makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
Like so I
I
got two
got a dual
degrees.
major and 3 minors for the same reason.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
partly for the same reason. And
yeah.
it's a layer between what interests me, what do I want to learn, and how do I maximize the number of either degrees or boxes that each of these things
Of
like
course.
overlaps with. So yeah.
And that's coming from like the program like I told you in high school. That's coming from like taking a bunch of AP classes and coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, like my mom just wanted me to do well, right? So like anytime I came with a program or she saw a program, look, we was a team to the point that like, all right, we worked together on my future. Like, yo, mom, I want to do this program. She's like, all right, go do it, right? If it's going to be positive to me. So I did college now, right? I took AP classes. Like I was that kid that was like, all right, yeah, I'm outside hanging on the block, but yeah, I'm gonna go walk down here to Lehman,
What is
right? Because
college
that's
now? And I'm
our
specifically asking
classes.
about college now and any other programs around that time that you felt were helpful because I think it's important for
All
people to
right,
know about them. Yeah.
we'll do. College now is a program that was offered through my high school, so I know that is at certain different high schools or whatever. It is you could take classes at college, right, outside of school time, and sometimes your class would count as a college now class, depending on how the makeup was. But I took a lot of classes that were college level classes when I was in high school. I committed to that, and they would. So when I came into college, I already had enough credits to like be a sophomore if I wanted to. I left college with a lot of credits because it wasn't my goal to like graduate early or anything like that. But I had those college credits in a lot of classes I didn't have to take, so I could take a bunch of other classes that I wanted to take. Right. So another program that I was a part of. Let me see if I could Google it. I don't know if it exists anymore, but
Hmm.
it's like a science and health program at Columbia University, and it was like citywide. It's called like SPSC or something like that. That program, I used to like work with like cadavers. This was like young, like ninth
Wow.
grade, and
Hmm.
people that I was in Bing with. That's why I said like I feel like my life is all about like connecting, right? It's people that like we were in 8th grade, I believe, in this program
Hmm.
that was at Columbia University was on Saturdays, right? I had to get up as a Bronx kid, get up, make my way to Washington Heights. My mom trusted me enough to go, let me go get on a 12 bus,
Mm-hmm.
boom, and then get on whatever, either the A train or something like that. I had to
Yeah.
go make those moves across the city, right? Make my way to 168th Street. and to do this like work that was like working like with doctors and things like that. And it's crazy when you get to college and it's like, yo, well, I'm in this program with people from Brooklyn, from Queens, and now we're in college and I see you again.
Yeah,
That's like
absolutely.
to think the city is big, but it's not really big when you're in like siloed programs and things like that. My high school had a lot of programs, so I did something called Youth About Business.
Got it.
Right, so that was throughout the whole New York City, and it was like, all right, they picked like the top school, and how Clinton ran it was like, if you were interested, you applied, and then they had like trial runs for you to make the team. The team was like people from your class, right? Because we're all in the same classes. We all trying. I was actually with one of my teammates actually yesterday. He just came back from Paris. One of my boys, he moved out to Paris and he just came to visit. So we were hanging out. This program is like, all right, once you get the team, is a team of 7. It's like a C-suite, right? Like everybody has to pick their position, right? You want to be a CEO, you want to be finance. How you going to do this? Because my week that we first got into it was for mergers and acquisitions, right? So as a high school kid, we're learning about mergers and acquisitions. We each get a business, and either you're going to acquire a business or you're going to be acquired. And the winners is like, yo, who orchestrated the business their best. So like me and my team, we made it to the championship camp.
That's cool.
Right. So we were like, so it was like we stood at Columbia University. It was crazy, right? I now, from the last 4 or 5 months working in education, I think back to all the things I did as a New York City student in school, and like my wife's a teacher. It's not even till I worked into schools. Like my wife's been a teacher for a decade. Here and there, we always joke about like, oh, I was this type of student and oh, I did this. But now being in the school and like, wow, the things that kids do that they don't really think much about. Like the teachers have to like have a high level of liability. We're like from the era where social media came to be, correct? I can remember the first time I ever heard like of a social media. I was on a school bus, right? Like I went to Clinton, so I lived close to Clinton, so I took the bus. I was a half fare kid. I heard on the bus, kids was going in like, yo, I'm a part of this group. Yo, did you sign on? Yo, add me as a friend. And I'm like, yo, what are they talking about? And it was like, yo, this thing is called Skonex. Like,
oh man,
I need to get on it, right? So I'm like, so now I went to school. So now it's like, I guess the thing just popped off like a couple of days or whatever. Everybody in school talking about it, exchanging.
Good times.
So man. I'm like, yo, but I grew up, right? I didn't have a computer in the house, right? Like me and my mom, we come from humble beginnings. I didn't have a computer at home. So anytime I had to like type papers or something, I was going to the library. I was staying extra time at the school because I didn't have a computer. Everybody was talking about it and things like that. I had to go to the library. Like after I was like determined, like, yo, I'm gonna go to the library, let me book my little hour and get right. Everybody from our generation could connect on like, yo, the AOL sound and like having to disconnect the phone. Ironically, like uniquely, I don't have that experience because I didn't even have a computer. Right? My mom had the phone at all times, right? Like I didn't have an internet in the house. The first time I got an AOL screen name was when I got was the Sidekick.
Wow.
The phone.
No, that's real.
Because it was in my hand. Right? Yeah, like it was. So when the internet got to handheld was the first time that I got on it. To like start making moves. So like so when it comes to technology, I'll be delayed, and I know
it's all good. But I mean, it's interestingly enough though, you always been good at networking, right? So like even you knowing that you were disadvantaged, were like, you know what? Let me try to figure out a way to get connected on this thing. Let me figure out a way to still tap into like the people I just met. And these are folks that, like, as you said, like some of them you're still hanging out with to this day, right?
Of course.
That's intentional, and that's an intentionality that goes behind bridging those relationships and maintaining them. So shout out to you though.
No doubt. So I mean, that's why I said like that's why I said I'm happy to have like the experiences I've had. Like I wanted to let you know like how I got to being at KIPP, right?
Yeah,
like,
please.
So Janet, we spoke about already. Very close friend of mine. She tells me about a fellowship that she's done. It's called KIPP, right? The Council of Urban Professionals.
Okay.
She tells me about it. And another one of my colleagues Her name is Miguelina. She's like top counsel for Assemblymember Carl Hasty. She invites me out to a happy hour. This happy hour happens to be for this group that Janet tells me about.
Okay.
Janet happens to be at this happy hour. It's at Zona de Cuba. We have a good time, right? They fill me in on what this is about. I meet some more people. So now this group of people are like intellectuals who are a part of like finance and legal throughout the city. And I guess they're making like political inways. So because they got Janet, they got this other young lady, Miguelina. And I noticed that it was heavily like African American, but I guess they're making their Latino and their people of color inroads because I've seen like very few Asian people in there, but it was welcoming. So I joined the program and it taught me a lot. This program, Council of Urban Professionals, I think like, I mean, being here on your platform, I'd love to promote it. I think that if you're a mid-level professional and you're looking to either like switch industries and get connected with people from different parts of the city, something to look into. One of Janet's very close friends from her year in it works at the NFL. Right.
She went to college with me.
All right. You see, look. So I mean, we're connected. So
she was housemates with my wife for like 3 years.
so look, right. So boom. So this young lady is crazy. Everybody's story is different. So this young lady, her older sister is like 25 years older than her and is the chief external officer at KIPP NYC. Before coming to work at KIPP, I was working on the governor campaign. I was doing the political directing for Uptown and the Bronx. So after the campaign was done, we won the campaign. I helped implement the first female governor in New York State's history. And I was looking for a new job because I didn't want to continue to just work for a principal. Like at that point, I knew that I wanted to work for an entity and not for an elected. So I was looking, and the person that we have a mutual connection to told me, hey, my sister is looking for something that is very specific to what you do. But for this, would you be interested? She sends it to me. It's KIPP, it's charter school. It's different from what I'm normally doing. But I have the unique experience of, like I said, I'm a fellowship junkie. My grad school degree, I have a master's in public administration from Baruch University, but it's specifically through a program called National Urban Fellows, right? So this program is an accelerated MPA program. It lasted 35 years at Baruch. I was the final class at Baruch. It is now at Georgetown University. So I've promoted it. I've sent a lot of people that I know from Bing to it. And so the program is basically similar to KIPP, but is with the intentionality of like making like, social political connections, but it's now on a national scale. So I had to, when you choose to do this program, you have to commit to it. You have to leave your job. So I did this in 2018. 2018, I was working for a New York State Assembly member named Marcos Crespo, and he worked in like the Soundview area of the Bronx, but he's no longer elected officially, and now he like does like political directing for Monty. He's like big wig there at Montefiore. But I was working for him and he was leaving to do that, right? Like I was working for, he was a dynamic elected official. He had the options to like become congressman, become borough president. He was like shining star at the Bronx at this point. So I was happy to be tied to him, right? With me loving the network, right? He was also like the chairman of the Bronx Democratic Party at this point. So like work was very fun, but he was choosing to leave work. People could have like tried to go with him or to do something else. So because I had this pause and I had to like look for the next step in my life, I chose to go and get my graduate degree because I was working and I necessarily didn't need a graduate degree. I was on a path to making a lot of money without having a graduate degree. And I think that that's what politics affords you if you're connected to the right people and in the right space.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that's around the time when I met you when you were working at Assembly Crespo's office, and I think you and I hit it off right away, especially when we made the connections of all the mutuals, and we're like, oh man, you solid, and we out here in late community boards together.
Especially seeing you doing good work, right? Like seeing you doing good work, like to see and like to think about it, like I drive on a Sheridan all the time. You know how much hard work
that's facts.
put into that.
Yeah,
And it's like, yo, but my drive on that is a little different from anybody else's. And it's like, yo, I put in hard work for this.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's real.
And that's the stuff like we worked on together. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's late nights, it's community boards,
it's all
going
of
to
that.
talk to people that are, really interested and sometimes not even big advocates of your projects.
Yeah, yo, it's crazy to try to win those people over, right? Like, and then to see the Bronx changing is perfect. So my grad school, when I was in grad school, I had to pick up and move. So it's an accelerated program. You did 2 months at Baruch in the summer, take classes all day, like you're working, like 9 to 5 for 2 months straight. You pick up, and so every Friday you interview with a different entity from a different sector from all over the nation, right? So we're interviewing with like hospitals, different state entities, everything that you can imagine, right? Those entities pick who they want from the group, because the group is small. It's only 24 people get chosen in the nation to come. So it's people from all over the nation that come. Luckily I'm a New Yorker, but everybody else had to pick up from where they was at, move to New York, find somewhere in New York to live for 2 months, and potentially move somewhere else. Because after our 2 months, we had to move somewhere else, stay 9 months, do a fellowship at this place, get paid very little bit of money because you're in school, move back, do 2 more months. So like it's summer to summer, you get your MPA and you get a whole experience in a new state. I moved to Chicago. So I was chosen to work with the Illinois State Charter School Commission, right? It's an entity that doesn't even exist anymore because the charter school sector, how that things work, it existed at one point, and then they voted to dismantle it once my fellowship was done and I left. Doing my political work is why they chose me, right? They seen that I worked with the state in New York, so I did that work, and I actually helped preserve the commission while I was there, right?
Got it.
Like, but to go to Illinois to see like state commission, and this was a state commission, there was 4 employees there. Crazy culture shock, like coming from working in the New York State Assembly.
Absolutely.
And I can go to any office at any day and it'll at least be like 5, 6 people in that one particular office. But for the whole commission to be 4 people, it was hard work for a long time. That 9 months was grueling.
Tell me how you even applied or heard about the Urban Fellow.
Because of my National Urban Fellows. My connections is always, I think my life is like built off of networking, right? Like that's like if somebody said like, yo, what's one like cornerstone of you and networking is, right? So a young lady I used to just bump into from grad school, from undergrad, I used to just bump into her in Harlem. Like I had ties to Harlem. My family's from Harlem. I used to live there. So a young lady named Glamory, she was looking into this program. She's like, yo, Davon, I'm looking into this. I bumped into her randomly, 125th. We just catching up, like you catching up with somebody from undergrad. Yo, how you doing? Yo, it's crazy. We bump into each other all the time. She's like, yo, I just want to tell you, I'm looking into this program. It's great, blah, blah. I know you into this type of stuff. Check it out. I check it out. Another thing that I say is like keen to me as a person is that like, I'd love to like talk, and I think I'm very persuasive. So when I looked into the program, the application was done, but I'm like, oh, I seen that it was nice. Like, oh, I wanted to get a graduate degree. Is MPA is at Baruch. So I'm a public school kid. I told you I wanted to go to Columbia. That did not happen. Right. So I've been in public school from kindergarten to grad school. Right. So it was like, oh, is that CUNY? This is a CUNY school. I could get a CUNY under my belt. Like, it's lit. I call the program. And I'm like, yo, I know the application is done, but I don't see when the next one opens. I'm calling for information because I'm taking initiative. I've learned that that's what it takes. The person who is the president of the organization that runs the fellowship, not Baruch, right? But the fellowship itself is like, you say your name was Davon Harris? I was like, yeah. They say, yo, where did you go to high school at? I said, I went to high school, DeWitt Clinton. The person is like, yo, this is my name. I was a dean at DeWitt Clinton during the time you were there.
Wow.
And I remember you.
Wow.
It's like, yo, if this person tells me, yo, listen, if you want to be in this program, send me all your information. I give you 3 days. Let's see if you could do all of this in 3 days. I got you. I'll put you in.
Got it.
So
Wow.
I made it work. I did it. I spoke to my wife. I spoke once she wasn't my wife at the point, right? She was my girlfriend. Right. We went to an undergrad together. I've been with my wife since undergrad. But
Hmm.
we're about to be 3 years married though. So we've been
Mhm.
together like a decade plus though. I told her, right, we were living together in an apartment. I told her like, yo, this is what it's gonna be. Like, this is what I want to do. Well, what are you with it? Are you with it? She's like, yo, this is what you want. Yeah, it's gonna build your profile. Like, I'm cool. I'm down with this 1 year struggle.
Yeah.
Right. So when people say like, yo, what about marriage and stuff like that? Yo, this lady was like, yo, and the time when she was living her life,
Mm-hmm.
her partner was like, hey, listen, I want to make this detour. And she was
Right.
like, all right, like, let's go.
Right.
Like, I'm
Because
here for the ride.
it's not just a commitment of grad school and a fellowship. It's also an understanding that I'm not going to be around for like 9 months.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah. I'm away. Yeah, I'm
mhm.
away. So like I would have to like
Hmm.
Spirit became my best friend, Spirit Airlines, because
Hey,
I would have to travel that joint all the time, like on the weekend. That I would say, like, if anybody ever say, like, yo, when would you ever be able to take Spirit? When you need to go somewhere multiple times, which you don't need a bag, right? Because I had an apartment in Chicago, apartment in New York. I didn't need to get a bag. All I needed to do was show up to the plane. And if it was delayed or whatever, didn't matter because I would be
Mhm.
home that Friday night because I needed to get time with my girl. It didn't matter. Like
Absolutely.
all of the other things around it didn't matter as long as it was going to get me somewhere very cheap. I didn't have to
That's real.
explain anything. So that it worked, right? Like, and I did an intense work for 9 months in charter schools, running it state level wide in Illinois. So when my people send me up and say, yo, this is a charter school opportunity, I was like, yo, this is crazy that this is coming back full circle because I get to do what I went to grad school for, but what I do, what I love doing, working with electives, working on policy, right,
Mm-hmm.
pushing legislation. So this space was like perfect for me to get there. And as like I said, it's built on like, having a persuasive speech and having the right network, right? Because my friend connected me with her sister. We spoke a little bit. And once they seen my resume and they
Mm-hmm.
spoke with me, it was like they wanted me, right?
Absolutely.
That's when the table had switched. Like, yo, Davon, we need you on the team.
Yeah, and I think it's part of it is being prepared for when that opportunity comes, right?
Of
Taking the
course,
initiative,
definitely,
like
definitely.
you took the initiative to say, oh man, this application for this National Urban Program, Urban Fellows Program is closed, but let me just call and get info.
Yeah, see
That
what's
led
up.
to
Yeah.
this person knowing who you were, knowing your track record, and knowing that you were actually like a good human that has a history of doing good work, saying, all right, you know what, if you're able to turn this around, which is also now putting it on your court to say,
Put
let me
a test. Yeah,
deliver,
yeah. Yeah. Let's
let me
see this.
deliver
Let's see
some
if you can do
quality
the test.
application. Right. And then going from there, right? And a lot of it is, yes, the network matters and people know your work and people know that you have a history of delivering, because your network is one thing, but your network is not going to open up doors if they know you're going to make them look bad ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, definitely. But that's why I said, like, yo, I think that, like, it's very true when people say, like, yo, surround yourself with the right people, right? That, like, that 33 rule that people talk about. I think that, I don't know if you have to be so rigid with it, but I do think that, like, you need to be around people who you could, like, iron sharpens iron, right?
Yep.
But you need to also be around people who you could teach, right? Like, I always want to be around somebody who could teach me, somebody who I could just have good banter with, and somebody I can teach, right? Doesn't necessarily need to be 33% in my whole life, but those are three type of people that I want to be around. And I want to be a person that people say, all right, we know Davon, he's going to get the job done, right? So like that's outside of the networking, right? That's just like integrity, right? Like
Absolutely.
certain things that, like, I would say, like, comes from being raised. Like, what were the things that were instilled on you? Like, so like my mom wasn't helping me with my multiplication, but she was helping me with my manners, right? Like with my posture, who to talk to, how to talk to them, right? Things that are like everyday life things. And like I would say, like, yo, so I went to college. I'm a fraternal man, but like the reason why I
Shout it out. What
joined
fraternity?
fraternity. So I'm a part of two different fraternities, right? And for like collegiate wise, I'm a part of, the greatest fraternity in the world, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And I'm also a part of a community organization. It's a fraternity called the Order of the Feather Fraternity, where I actually joined it before I joined Omega because I'm a grad Q. So I joined Omega after my undergrad years, and I joined this community organization first because it was everybody when I worked at the nonprofit I worked at when I came out of college, all the men that worked there, even if they were Greek, were in this fraternity. It was like, yo, listen, we work here in Harlem and we have chapters in every borough, and we're just Black men doing the work here for Black youth. So that's why I joined that particular fraternity. And those men actually helped me find a path towards Omega, the ones who were Omega men. Right. So like those men showed me a lot in how to be like a man of distinction. Right. I love the men in my family, but I come from a family where like majority of the men in my family were in jail. Right. Like my father was in jail my whole life, like more so like now he's not in jail, but like growing up, like he's missed like all his kids' graduations. Right. Like so he got to come to my grad school graduation. I was happy to go to grad school in 2018 after he's come home from jail in like 2016, so he could come to a graduation, right? Like, cause he missed everybody's graduation because how I attribute it, he was doing a lot of things, which I mean, like he was convicted of doing criminal activities, but he was doing those things for the betterment of his family, and that's how I attribute all the men in my family, because my particular family, everybody, when people, you see a lot of these things like when rappers are going through now, like RICO cases. Like I was a young kid and I knew what that was, right? Like I was in high school and I knew what a RICO case was because all the men in my family had already been in jail because of this, right? And then like I had a different understanding of like life and like friendship and commitment to things because like I've seen like people in my family work together, right? Like whether it's criminal activity or not, right? They're enterprise who working together, right? And then I seen like what type of integrity people have. If like, so some people talk about like snitching and things like this is not this podcast about career, but like I have a whole like wealth of knowledge and things like of like street life, right? Because like in my family, what people would call me is like the good kid, right? Like I'm like the good one, right? Because like everybody else is what we would call it is like they involved, right? Like they doing something. But I think that that type of lifestyle and what comes with like the teachings of it is great. Like I knew how to like deal with failure. I knew how to like make sure like I set a plan in order and complete it from these men. They just didn't know how to tell me about 401k. Like they just didn't know like how to teach me about stocks, right? So when I got to college, right, I surrounded myself with fraternal men because they were Black men who came from places like me, who got out and learned, right? Absolutely. They were the men who could teach me. My family could teach me about certain things, right? They couldn't teach me about other things. So I had to go find those things.
Yeah, and it makes sense also because I think, this part of your story and part of what makes you who you are and why you're able to go into a room and relate to so many people, right? Because you've been through different walks that not everyone in your type of position has gone through. So you can go into different systems and say, okay, this is how we can, one, recommend some things that can fix it. Two, the real impacts as I lived it. Three, talk to youth and parents differently because you understand some of the challenges that they may be going through. And it's like, look, I completely hear you and we can work together to make this happen. This is me and this is my background. And like, I think that adds to you definitely personally, but also professionally. I think you just show up differently when you have that perspective.
Of course. I do think that people see me and they're like, damn, Davon, you do this work. Like my coworkers now, if any was to like, when people say, like, what would somebody say about you? I know my coworkers would be like, yo, Davon is excited about the work, right? Like Davon is excited about the work. Like what makes me excited, like this wasn't where I wanted to be in life, like, or wasn't like, hey, I wanted to go and do this. But it makes me feel intrinsically happy when I did a week of graduations, right? I told you we got 18 schools, right? Going to just showing up to the graduations and like seeing families that I know, right? People from my block, right? People that live in my mom's building. And they're like, yo, Davon, what you do? Oh, I got your email. That was from you? That's crazy.
Wow.
Right? And it's like, yo, just and to see like, and I think particularly when I see like men, like my men of color peers who are from my neighborhoods, who are like, might be like dealing with like the criminal justice system now and things like that. When I see them like showing up for their kids at the graduation, that makes me feel good. And for them to see me and be like, all right, because they know me, right? And they know how I stand as a man, right? Because we grow up around each other, right? So they know it's a hard life to even choose to come from our communities and to choose to be on the path we're on. That's a hard life, right? Like, and they know that, and they know that I'm a genuine person. So just the last week when the schools were closing, and I was seeing this, and to see so many people like, yo, Davon, seeing you here making me feel like I even made an even better choice to be a part of that brand, right? Because like people are trying to get into KIPP like as a school because the brand is crazy. Like I think the school is so dynamic just to what we're doing, and people breaking down the door, right? Like somebody just called me trying to see, yo, can you check on to see my kid's application process? And I'm like, yo, listen, like, yo, I can't get them in, right? Like, you know, like I know the rules, but like, let me go and see what the process is. Yo, all right, your kid is like on the wait list 368. They might not like they more likely not getting in. Right? But it's like, yo, that's how crazy people want to come to the school. And it's like, I'm happy to be a part of that brand, right? And that's why I even took the job, right? Because it's like I think so highly of myself. At one point when I was coming out of college, I used to be like, damn, like I need to work for something that's great. Like I need to go be a part of something that's there. But I mean, now that I've been working, I've built myself to a point. I am the entity now, and I need to be aligned with something that's aligned with me.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't want to be working somewhere and then somebody is like, oh, this is what you, because no matter where you work, you're going to get some of those comments. Like, because everything is not hunky dory. Yeah. But I want to work with a place that got more of the positive, yo, this is a great place. I know they're doing the work. I could see myself in KIPP, right? So it's like, yo, oh, when they describe it, it's like, all right, yeah. Like, and that's why people see me, they're like, oh, this is perfect. It's a line. But like the one thing that I would say that like when you get to this part of your career in this stage, right? I went from doing like political and like doing like consultant style work to like now coming back to working like nonprofit, right? Like that has like financial impacts. That's the only thing that somebody might say. Like I see a lot like people from my life in politics are like, yo, Davon, why would you go work for a nonprofit? You could want to work for a private sector situation and make more money. I think that like KIPP at the moment, they want me to a point that they paid me enough money to get my services. Yep. Right? Like, and I don't know. I'm not checking on other people's paychecks or whatever. I don't know if it's unique, but I had a point that I wanted to get, and I negotiated that. Like I'm comfortable in that space in my career. And I think a lot of it comes from just the teaching and learnings I've been gaining from my different fellowships and my experiences in life and talking with my peers. You could work at a place that doesn't have like high regard in the finance space, but still get compensated extremely well.
Absolutely. So actually, that's a good segue, because I feel like what I was going to say earlier was that you're not only from the community, but you're for the community, right? And it's great. And that's why people love seeing you in these spaces. I would say to what you just mentioned, I think it's important to talk about salaries and understand how much opportunity there is to do good and get well compensated for it. Because I think a lot of times people have comments like what you received, like, oh, you should go to private sector. It's like, no, I could actually do really good work and still get good money.
And then if I was in the private sector, I wouldn't be in the spaces that I'm in.
100%. So like, can you give us a range of what someone with your years of experience in your type of role could make?
I would say in my type of role, right, depending on, so the experience is a little bit different, right? So like when I would tell you when was propositioned to me, it was like from like 70 to 100K, right? And when I came and I was like, well, listen, this is what I do. This is where I'm at, right? And I'm looking to make more than that. So the opportunity came to like get more money. That's right. Cool. So I do think that like I'm a person, like I just came from working in the city council. My salary was like $60,000 to be like very transparent. But I worked in a space that like allowed me to do so much other work that I made enough money that it wasn't just $60,000 that I left the year with. I knew that, like, so after doing that council work, I was like, I can't keep doing this, because now to make ends meet on the financial things, that now I'm exuding all of my time, right? Because there's other spaces to get money in, but I have to give all my time and my body and stuff too. Because like working for an elected is not only just like the little mind, especially during a time like the pandemic, we haul in thousands of pounds of food out and stuff like that. And so it was a lot. So like I think that like when people are your intellectual power, that's what you need to be selling, right?
Yep.
Like, yo, listen, like, hey, listen, this is what I'm bringing to the table, and you could make upwards to, like, in my specific role, like I'm a manager. There's a director above me. I have a partner. We're like colleagues at work because we're peers, but she's the director of advocacy. So she's probably making more than me, and I think that you could make like upwards of like 160.
Got it, and that's
in
great,
the space.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good money. Like we're young
yeah.
30s, right? Like we're like in that space that it's like, hey, we're creating a foundation. Like clearly, I know people that make more money than me. I know people that make way more money than me.
Absolutely.
But like, yeah, I make good enough money that I could have my own life. I could buy something that I want, right? Like I'm not strained to be like, all right, and I'm a working dad, right? So like now that like coming into play is like, all right, like it's sometimes I entertain like, yo, what's that private sector money looking like? But yeah, listen, this is what I want to do, right? Like,
I love
so
that.
I'm doing this like because this is what I want to do. I'm also like in a place, and I reassure my colleagues at work all the time that it's not like I'm definitely down for longevity, but I'm not on a person that's not going to be able to go get what's for me, right? Like, so like I'm not going to be committed in a place that ain't committed to me and my growth.
Absolutely.
Right. So if if the opportunity comes that I feel like I'm going to grow a little bit more and it's going to give me what I'm getting here, I'm gonna have to entertain that. But I'm just 4 months in. I'm not entertaining it right now. I'm good.
Of course, but it's always good to, have that openness and awareness. So are there any forms of media that have changed you personally or professionally? So thinking whether books, shows, podcasts, anything like that you're like, man, once I read or watched this, that kind of changed things for me.
When you sent me the prep for that, I was thinking about this, right? Because like it's not like I read a lot of books. A piece of media, like, it's gonna be ironic, yo. And I apologize if it's stranger than like any of your other like people, but a piece of media that like guides me in my life is the Bible, right? People don't usually consider it a piece of media, but it is, right? Like that's something that I read, and it has a lot of stories and allegories in it. A lot of the things that like I could attribute to just like having those personal characteristics. I get it from the Bible. Like, so that was just what sat on me when I read the prep, right?
Got
like
it.
because I couldn't pick like, oh, I got books that I like, right? Like, and it's like, but I never was like I never read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I never read 48 Laws of Power. Like, that's not me, right? Like the podcasts that I'm listening to are like very much so hip hop podcasts, like Drink Champs.
Oh yeah,
I might get into the Joe Budden podcast. Like I said already here, like I'm definitely doing like the Career Cheat Code podcast because like offhand I could just list a number of people that I've watched that we are connected to, both like Janet, Julissa Baez, Hector Sanchez. It's a bunch of Antonia. You went to high school with her, right?
Absolutely.
Well, me and Antonia, we were in the Youth About Business together.
Absolutely.
That's how I know Antonia. So we were traveling the country in high school together,
absolutely,
right? But we weren't in high school together.
Yep.
Yeah, like
that's
so, like
wild.
so
That's wild.
that's small. It's small world things, right? Like, and that's why I said it's like, yo, I think that it's beautiful to like be a part and to like just connect and continue, and that's what I like to give to people. Like, yo, listen, go out and try something. Like, I like to impart that on somebody. Like, yo, make another connection. Right. And it goes back to like like me and my mom. My mom is an evangelist now. Like we grew up like that. I grew up in church. Right. So that goes back to like me going to church every day. Like, well, not every day, but majority every Sunday. at the end of our church, we get up and the pastor, reach out and touch somebody.
Mm.
Just give somebody a hug, give somebody a comforting word. This is how we're gonna leave each other today.
I love that.
Right? Like so that's I try to implement that into my life. That's what I'll listen to
That's
here
real.
and there. Like I'm also not like doing like podcasts for the show though. Like I was like, what podcast do I go to and listen to?
Yeah.
All right. So when I'm traveling, me and my wife are doing road trips. We're like I'm heavy into like true crime.
Okay.
Right. So like I'm like always listening to a podcast called like Crime Junkies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's another one called In the Dark, like that I love. And like my wife likes one that is it's like crimes and makeup or something like that. When the girl and she watches it sometimes and the girl is like doing true crime but doing her makeup.
Mm-hmm.
I can't watch it, but I'll listen to it with her in the car. But those are like podcasts that I'm into. Yeah. But I'm like, I would say like things that really like guided me, like pieces of media that guided me, like very hardcore hip hop. Even to this day, like when I go in my car, the selection of music is like DMX, The Lox, like very much so like music that like I don't think you could make today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like it won't play on the radio at all. So like those are the things that like influenced me because like I said, right, I come from growing up like in the street, like some of the hardest, roughest streets in New York City. A lot of the people who are my peers, like when people say like people are dead or in jail, that's a real thing, right? Like I have a number of friends who have been murdered. A number of friends whose lives consist of them going in and out of jail. A number of friends who now that we're 30, they've spent more than half their lives in jail. So imagine like I'm now trying to like be a friend and mentor to peers who are still like in the neighborhood. They're like a kid, right? They were in jail when they were 17. But now we're about to be 35, right? And it's like getting them acclimated. They don't know nothing about a Metro card. Like they don't know like something about like that. I can remember teaching my pops about a Metro card. He didn't know what it was, like because he was in jail for so long and certain things changed. So that's where I'm at with it, like trying to stay connected, right? But still, build my foundation. Like I imagine, right? So like this is why I said about how people they know where I come from, people know and love me, right? I have my family's visiting my mom from Alabama. They're staying with my mom. So my mom is from Briggs Avenue. Is like that's a 52nd precinct. It's really rough over there, right? Like so, my man's is outside. When I pull up, I see all my man's outside. Like they are the people on the block, right? Like if we were in a community board meeting, and I announced like, hey, I've been like you said, we go to community board late nights. I've announced like, hey, listen, this is me giving comment from this office, but I live on 194 in Briggs, and then the whole room be like, whoa, because everybody in that room is not the people who be outside on the block. Like, it's a different subset of people. But like I took my daughter to see my mom yesterday, and I'm hanging outside. Maybe I was outside about 10 minutes, and like two of my friends was like, yo, Davon, I think you should just head out soon. Like, right? Like if my boys, those are like, and we grown, right? Like somebody might have took that as an offense to be like, yo, dude, you just shouldn't be telling me about how to handle my time or whatever. But no, they love me so much that they're like, yo, listen, like anything could happen at any time, Davon, and we don't want that to be you.
I love that.
Like, yo, listen, we here, we live in here, and this is what we're choosing to do. But no, you've made so many decisions. Like, let me help you out with the next one.
Absolutely, yeah, that's great.
That's how I seen that. That's how I see it, right? Like, because it was a time where I was just making the hard decisions to be like, well, nah, yo, I'm not going with y'all to do this. Right. Like there was a time that they knew that like I had enough pride and I wasn't scared to tell them like, yo, nah, I'm not doing that.
Absolutely.
Whatever y'all gonna do. And now they could be like, yo, Davon, you shouldn't even be here.
Yeah. The funny part is I had a similar conversation recently because we are sometimes tasked with making tough decisions quickly at work. And it's like, bro, when you come from like real life threatening decision making, this other stuff is like not that hard to navigate.
And what some of our counterparts, right? Like some of our like white counterparts is on the flip side, because they haven't had that, right? Like they haven't had those experiences, right? Like, and the decisions that you are making, that it weighs so much. That's why I said, like, I'm a person that, like, I had to learn to be able to communicate with people who have like anxiety, right? Because like I didn't really understand how to process it at one point. Like what? Like, come on, like everything, life is just anxious. Like that's how I grew up, right? Like everything about it is at its top level.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So like you should just calm down and let us do to whatever's gonna happen, whatever. And also me having faith in God, yo, whatever has happening is His will, and we just gotta submit to what this is and try our best.
I love that. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Is there anything else that the world should know about Davon that we haven't spoken about?
Yo, Davon, I'm the coolest guy ever, yo. Reach out to me. Really, what I would like to say, like one of a big part of what's intrinsically me and that I just consciously took note of recently is that like I help people connect them to a lot of different things. So like if anybody's watching this and they might need help with anything, connecting to anything, that's real life, right? Like I would go out my way to try to do that, right? To try to see what I can do, right? If I can't do it, it's not in my power. I definitely am honest about that. But like I feel good when I'm like in different aspects of life and it's like I've seen people and it's like, oh, I help you get this job. Right. Like I used to in my nonprofit, when I worked in nonprofit, when I first came out of college, I was doing like youth development, anti-gun violence work, like doing wraparound services for kids who were in justice involved things, because those were like, I seen them as my cousins and my brothers and stuff, right? The people who couldn't make the decisions that I was making. But to be 10 years later and to be seeing them gainfully employed, suited and booted. I was at Bistro, right? Like the peer of mine owns, but like the nighttime manager is a young lady that she used to come to my class, booming like packs every day. Like it was crazy to see her and be like, she's like, yo, Davon, this is crazy that I get to come here. Yo, I'm gonna go get you and your table some drinks.
Wow.
Right? And
that's
like,
awesome.
yo,
that's amazing.
That's beautiful, right? Like that's what makes me happy, right? So I think that like you see me, you see a God-fearing man who's trying to improve the community. If I could help you improve the community in any way, let me know. I'm happy. I'm going to promote this soon as you do whatever media you got for this. You know, I'm blasting this to everybody and my people. I'm trying to be the most viewed career cheat code. You know, that I got goals, right?
That's
like,
right. I'm gonna keep that as a challenge for everybody.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, right? Like that's the type of thing that I want to now that we're a part of here. I'm happy to impart that on you. Now, let's get the career cheat code challenge going. I'm gonna promote that. So like, let me be the most viewed.
Love it, bro.
Yo, I'm happy for you to have had me, man. Since I've met you, you do great work. Yo, I just want everybody to know, like, yo, to have this platform and to like bring so many people from different industries. Like I said, I haven't gotten to watch everyone, but every single person that I've watched has been in a different industry, right? And these are all people that I know.
Absolutely.
Right. That at one point, we all had the same opportunity, right? Like we were all gifted with the same opportunity. A lot of people from Bing, right? Like Marcelina, Matas, right? Like a lot of people that I went to college with, we've all had the same opportunity at one point. And like we're all at different paths now. So to watch it, to see their future, even though like these are people that I might have been around every day at one point in my life that I don't get to see as much now, but to see where they're at, I want to thank you for bringing that platform.
Appreciate that. Much love, bro. Thank you. That's the goal, man. We're going to continue to go from here.
No doubt, yo. No doubt. Thank you for having me. And continue. Peace and blessings.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did and believe on the mission we're on, please like, rate, and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're using, and share this podcast with your friends in your networks. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Career Cheat Code, and tell us people or careers you would like to see highlighted. See you next week with some more cheat codes. Peace.